Hello everyone and welcome on board the Sunset Safari here on Djuma Private Game Reserve this afternoon. My name is Scott and it's a pleasure to have you with us this afternoon. VM is on camera with me this afternoon and we are looking forward to some really good prospects that await us. We've come into this area in the hope that we may find Mvula, a male leopard. I'm pretty certain it's his tracks we followed from Buffelshoek Dam, which is just behind us, towards Hyena Road, where we parked right now with all the flies, and we didn't see any of his tracks crossing the road. So what I'm going to do is probably loop around to Buffelshoek Dam, see if there's anything to show you there. Failing that, we'll come back. He was heading away from the dam in this direction, but I need some time to explore here on foot. So before I do that though, I'd like to take you across to Buffelshoek Dam and show you what we can see there. This is a live safari, so everything that happens is unplanned and unscripted. And if it's your first time, it's also important to know that it's interactive. You can send your questions and comments through to either myself, Scott, or through to James, the other presenter who you'll meet shortly. He's headed across to Arathusa in the hope of finding some of the Styx lioness. He got lucky enough to see one of the Matimba males this morning, and not only did he see him, but he also got to see him vocalizing twice really close to the vehicle, so that's some great news, and some of you would have got to see that. But he's hoping he can find the rest of the pride of lioness that was also with the Matimba male before they split up, probably in the early hours of this morning. And another update from this morning is that Karula made a kill, and it was really a once-in-a-lifetime thing that happened, because I was following her tracks. Texan had lost her in quite a thick block, and I moved into the area to give Jamie a hand. I wasn't presenting, so I was just out on a tracking team, and we probably only got into the area about 15 minutes after Texan lost her, and we eventually found some of her tracks crossing into a little riverbed, and a few meters on, following those tracks, we found her, and then she got up and we could see she was stalking something. It was quite thick and we wanted to give her some space so that we didn't scare her at all. And all of a sudden we just heard some squealing, wah, wah, and she had caught a steenbok right in front of us whilst on foot. And then Jamie came in with the vehicle, and a lot of you may have seen her consume the entire steenbok in one sitting and then moved off into some thick bush. So there's also a chance we may go and look for her a little bit later. We haven't seen Mvula for so long though that I thought it would be good to try and start the afternoon searching for him. And Nikki and Louise, one of the new content managers from Johannesburg, has come up to relieve Kirsty, who headed back today. So it's Nikki and Louise in the final control room. It's a very warm winter's afternoon. The change in temperature from the early morning to the middle of the day and then back to the late evening is astounding. This morning it was probably around 6 or 7 degrees Celsius, and now it's probably around 27, 28 degrees Celsius. So quite a massive change in temperature. And there's a bit of a breeze blowing. You can't see at the moment because there's not many leaves left on the trees, but if there were, you would see them blowing in the wind. Very good. On a hot afternoon like this, when there's not much water around, the waterholes can be very productive, and the Buffelshoek waterhole's just up ahead of us, and maybe we'll get to see this family of kudu heading down for a drink. I can see 3 so far, but there could be a couple more in the area, and there may even be some males trailing them. A fair amount of mating is done with the antelope at this time of the year. a tough time for the kudu. You can see the youngster on the right there nibbling on what few leaves are growing off that tree. But being browsers, or almost strictly browsers, during the summer months, they have to adapt during the harsh, dry winter months, especially this season. It's remarkably dry and there's not much food for them. So we may see them feeding on grass from time to time, even though that's typically not what they would do. But they all still seem in good shape. The next few months, though, will be critical. We're going to notice a lot of weakening herbivores in the coming months. We can expect our next rains in October, so it's still quite some time before they get relieved, or so the vegetation gets relieved with some rainfall. Oh, she's heading the wrong way. Very good. Well, not a bad start to the afternoon. Sorry, last station, go again. Oh, well, look what we have here. Hello, boys. Oh, don't get up for us. Really, you can stay seated. A small bachelor herd of buffaloes enjoying the beach here at the Buffalo's Hook waterhole. Yesterday morning there was about 400 buffalo drinking at this waterhole. And I wonder if these old bulls didn't pull off that large herd and hang around in the area. There was no sign of them this morning when I was here tracking. Wow. A wonderful sunny afternoon here, and I think the animals are going to be on the go slow until things cool down. But in the meantime, we can send you across to James, who would like to give you an update on his afternoon so far. And I hope he's having some luck with those tracks. I know he did try and do a bit of tracking this morning looking for the lioness, but didn't have much luck. So hopefully things have changed, and we will see you all a little bit later.
Hello everybody, and welcome to Wendy on this marvellous winter afternoon in the Greater Limpopo Transfrontier Park, 7 million acres of magnificent wilderness wonderland. My name is James Hendry, in case you are wondering, and on camera today we have Jean-Dre. He is wearing a sparkly, well, it's not very sparkly actually, it's quite filthy red bandana to go with his beard, and very fashionable sun hat this afternoon. Jean-Dre is also shoeless for some reason. I'm not sure why that is. We currently find ourselves on Arathusa, and Arathusa, for those of you who don't know, is the property to the west of Djuma, where Scott introduced himself to you. And we are looking for some lions. Now, earlier today we found a male lion, a Matimba male. For those of you who don't know, they are part of the dominant coalition of 2 male lions here at the moment. We had a magnificent experience of him roaring straight through our bones today. It was a spectacular experience. But there are tracks, and we're on them now, of what looks to be about probably one, I can't tell exactly because they're quite old and people have driven over them, 1 or 2 lionesses and possibly some cubs. So that's my main goal this afternoon, is to see if we can't try and find those cubs and the mother. I don't hold out a huge amount of hope, to be honest, because the tracks are from last night. But no one found them this morning. There was a lot of activity on Arathusa, and if they had been in an obvious position, somebody would have found them. Also, if they'd crossed a lot of the road, somebody would have found them. So I think they're in and around this vicinity. The male was found just over there, somewhere around there this morning, and we'll go just now to see if he's still around there, and then probably press on and see if we can't find the rest of the pride. And by saying the rest of the pride, remember, he isn't part of the pride. Any questions you have, hashtag Safari Live or questions at wildearth.tv. We love to hear from you, especially if you're a new viewer or perhaps a regular viewer who's been a bit reticent about speaking to us before. Please feel free to go ahead. So I'm going to answer your questions as I drive along and try and find some tracks. So a question from Marianne and Koen, I think it's Koen in the Netherlands. You want to know, I'm going to drive very slowly through here because this is where the tracks are leading. You want to know, the Matimba male that we saw this morning has got an injury on his right paw. It looks about around the dew claw on the right foot. And you want to know, will it heal and will it affect his ability to hunt? First of all, he has had that injury apparently for almost a year now, so that's quite a long time. I am beginning to think that it's a thorn that's stuck in the foot and is failing to come out, and that's why it's not healing quite as it should. He definitely is affected by it. He walks much more slowly because of it. And please excuse me not looking directly at the camera while I look at the floor for tracks. He's definitely affected by it. Will it affect his ability to hunt? Probably, but at the same time, you know, he's in pretty good condition, so it's obviously not affecting his ability to eat too much. He's in pretty good nick. I'm pretty sure that if it is a thorn, and if the thorn comes out, it'll heal quite quickly. But if it doesn't come out, it's going to stay like that for some time until the body either gets used to it or manages to get rid of it. Is that an impala, Rompe? There is an impala through there. And I'm just going to, I'll tell you by way of illustration. Chandra is just, can you see it? Okay, it's through, by way of illustration of how difficult this is to look for. Chandra is looking straight at the impala and he's struggling to see it. It's just, if you follow through between those 2 sticks, the dead one, and then there's another one similarly straight to the left of it. You see it? Now, even if you don't see the impala, the importance of this is that this is what we're looking at. This is the kind of condition in which we're trying to spot an animal that has better eyesight, better smell, and better hearing than us. And so we need to move very slowly, very carefully, keep our eyes peeled, and it's only through time that you start to be able, there you can see the movement of the impala. So it's only with time that your eyes become accustomed to seeing things that perhaps shouldn't be there, or that perhaps are a little bit out of the ordinary. And that's what we're looking for when we're tracking a lion through vegetation like this, which is quite thick. And on a warmish day like this, this is what the lions are going to want to be lying in, because they like to be in the shade. Hello Yvonne. Interesting question. You say you've never seen a lion roaring while lying down. They actually do it more commonly than you think. And I suspect there are 2 reasons for it. We had a bit of a discussion about it this morning. The one was that by lying down, what he does is if he's lying on his side and then his head's up like that, the voice box and the hyoid apparatus which holds the voice box in place is twisted, and so the voice box can't get the same level of vibration that it might otherwise, and it needs that vibration in order to get out that immense roar that rattled our rib cages this morning. And the other thought, and when he's lying down, of course, then it's straight. So when he's standing or lying down, that sound tends to travel further. The other thought is that it may travel along the ground further than if it's just sent into the air. And that's a possibility. I'm not sure of the physics behind the sound waves, though. It was his breath that was coming out this morning. It wasn't. It was a very chilly morning this morning, and it wasn't dust that was coming out of his mouth. And for those of you who missed it, he was roaring on the ground, and there was this tremendous cloud of condensation coming out of his mouth as he yelled his head off. It was wonderful to see. Right, on we go. I'm not sure that I'm actually on a road anymore. Well, Susie Johnson, you'd like a sensory update and you want to know what South Africa smells like today. Well, I'll tell you what, in downtown Johannesburg, not like it smells here. It smells here very delightful. I'll just stop and try and give you a sense of it. Gendre, 2 words for the smell that you can smell. Nothing. You've got nothing for me. I'd say, Susie, it's very crisp. There's been a cold front that's come through the area, and so it's not quite as dusty smelling as it is often at this time of the year. There's a very subtle hint of the dry grass around here, which I love. It's a really nice smell. And there's a gentle breeze blowing through the area that's probably clearing away some smells. We do, of course, get the odd smell of animal dung in the air, but not very strong at the moment. Much better smelling than downtown Johannesburg and probably downtown Cape Town. Right. Susie, it's a nice warm day as well. It's probably about 24, 25 degrees centigrade, which is not bad going for midwinter. Right, I seem to have run out of road, but we're going to keep forging on through here, because I am unconvinced that the rangers who came past here this morning, they became distracted by a leopard on another site, and so they stopped tracking. So I'm unconvinced of the directions they gave me this morning. It sort of looks like a road, I suppose. I'll give it 1 out of 10 for road usefulness. As you saw, those impala were very difficult to see, so not easy to try and find your way here. Just watch your head there, Gendre. I'd hate to get that caught in your beard. It would be left hanging on the tree. So can't hear anything alarm calling around here. And now, for those of you perhaps new viewers, an alarm call is something that an animal does when it sees a predator, or a bird does when it sees a predator. And that was too good to be true. I saw a lion-coloured log in front of us. And it's something that we have to listen out for. Squirrels specifically make hugely obvious alarm calls. And they flick their tails. And they do that if they see lions. Even though lions aren't necessarily a huge threat to them, they'll do it when they see leopards. And then birds will also alarm call, like rattling testicular, drongos. And then of course the prey species like impala and wildebeest and zebra will also alarm call. There's quite a large donga here, Gendre, we should probably avoid. I'm not sure that even the Land Rover Defender 90 can get out of there. Do you see any lion tracks there? I don't.
None.
None. Okay. Gendre, of course, apart from being a fashion icon of the bushveld, is also a soon-to-be fairly talented tracker. I think cameramen probably make very good trackers because they have such good eyes. Oh, that one's going to knock the aerial. Right, okay. Yeah, here we go. So we're into a fairly eroded spot here, and I know there is a road across there somewhere. Here's a nice spot where the lions may have crossed, so we'll just check it for tracks. We may have to ramp our way up here. Yeah, I don't see any lion tracks going this way. So I think the trick is going to be, there's a road up there I can see. The trick's going to be to get onto that road and see if the tracks have come out of this block. And if they haven't, then we'll try coming back in here. Right, Gendre, hold on tight. This is going to get ugly. Hold on to your drinks, everybody. No, it's actually quite easy. Now this is of course most easily done on foot, but that's only if you've got pretty fresh tracks, because of course lions can move quite a distance, and so in the vehicle we do just get to be able to cover a bit more space and of course bring you along with us. This is the most important part of the safari. Termite mound in the way. I'm strongly beginning to think that they are in this block. Not seeing any further tracks. I think that's a road up there, it might not be. If you do lose us, I'm sorry, we're not in a great signal area. And if you do lose us, you're not going to go across to Scott because he's off the vehicle tracking a male leopard, which is quite fun. You'll get us back pretty soon. Watch out here, Jean-Brian. Stall the vehicle. It's not ideal. Right, we made it up. There's a road here. Got a comment from Sibusiso, who says that the best South African smell is to be found in Pretoria. Sibusiso, I have to disagree with you vehemently. While there might be the odd nice smell in a Pretoria garden of a summer's day, I would say that the overriding smell of Pretoria and Johannesburg is one of large city, and therefore not particularly appealing. Okay, so we're coming, the lions were heading through this block here to my right, and we're just going to hope that they may have popped out here. Although I think this is the road on which the Matimba male was found this morning. So we're going to drive very slowly along here. there? There really is a lot going on here. So, perhaps there's a block there. Nearing the area where the Matimba was this morning, if I'm not mistaken. So maybe he's still there. Stop here and have a quick listen and just see what we can hear. Just look around under the bushes and see if there isn't something that we can pick up, some telltale bird call, squirrel call, or something like that. Alright everybody, what we're going to do is I'm going to hand you over to Scott briefly. He is still on the trail of the leopard. I know that he hasn't come up with anything just yet, but we're going to go across to him now. The Matimba male is on this road, and I'm going to go and see if he's still there, and if he is, we'll let you know. Otherwise we're going to carry on down here and see if the tracks don't come out a little bit further down. Otherwise we'll follow up behind where we were. Thanks for joining us. We'll be with you again shortly.
Welcome back, and you've gone from one fruitless search to another. I've got no updates on the male leopard tracks that I went to follow up on foot. So, because it is quite a tricky area to work this with not many roads, and the fact that he wasn't walking along the road makes it a little bit tricky. So we're gonna head out back towards where Karula was last seen this morning and see what we can find along the way. The problem is, in this heat, whatever we find cat-wise is probably not going to be up to too much. But then again, we often do get proved wrong, and we could come around in the next corner and find the male leopard we're looking for walking down the road. So just because I voice my opinions and predictions, it doesn't mean that they are necessarily going to be correct. At least we both have kind of backup plans. James is that he will probably find them a Matimba male where he left them this morning. And for us on this vehicle, we've got a chance of finding Karula. And who knows, maybe Mvula will pop up, or whichever male leopard this was will pop up at the Djuma waterhole later. They can cover such big distances, the males. Their territories are far larger than the females, and that makes tracking them down a tricky business. It's not often we drive down this road. It's probably the worst road on the whole of Djuma, Hyena Road. It's very bumpy, and I only drive it on special occasions, i.e. if there are tracks heading in that direction. So quite nice to actually be back here. It's not that it's not pretty here, it's merely because it's a very bumpy, uncomfortable road to drive down. That is why most people tend to avoid it. we've just got a special request through from Cecile. Good to have you with us again, Cecile. And she noticed that Jamie pointed out a poisonous tree, or toxic tree, the Tambuti tree, spelled Tambotie. And Cecile had forgotten the name of that tree. It's toxic to most animals, and porcupine will occasionally chew on the bark and the roots of the Tambuti tree, and very occasionally I've seen giraffe feeding on them. But most other animals will avoid the Tambuti with its milky latex, and it's also no good for us as humans. If we were to use that wood to cook on, it would poison the food, making it very nauseous, and it would also, even if we were just to use it for warmth, just the smoke that we would inhale would make us sick. And I know there's a beautiful specimen of a Tambuti just around the corner here, so I'm just going to be able to show all of you exactly what tree it is. It's off to our right over here. And it's the big dead one up there that we can see. I'm going to look for a few smaller ones to point out to you, because the smaller ones do look very different to the big ones. So the big one, you'll notice, got very dark bark. And this is a massive Tambuti tree as far as they go in this area. It's a beautiful hardwood, so great for furniture and building, but no good for burning. And then what I'm going to ask VM to do, there's a few smaller ones just off to the left. There we go, it's very tall. It's that very tall, thin one, VM. There you go, you're spot on. And it's got very white bark when it's a young tree, so it is a tricky one when it comes to learning, because it can look so different when it's young. This one right in the center of shot with a very white bark coloration is a baby Tambuti. You've got an idea of how windy it is, seeing it wave in the wind like that. The leaves often have an orangey coloration to them into the winter months, but now most of them have lost all of their leaves. So that also helps to distinguish them from other trees. There's not too many other trees whose leaves will go the same reddish orange color. So there we go, Cecile. I hope that refreshes your memory bank now. So our plan from here is to continue along Central Road until we get to Drakensberg, and then we're going to head south until we hit Ledwood Road, and then eventually ending up at Twin Dams. There is a small chance that Karula may have headed there for a drink after finishing her Steenbok this morning. Failing that, I think she is going to pop out at the Djuma waterhole. So either one of those two waterholes are the closest to her. And Djuma certainly is closer than Twin Dams, but we're going to loop around and head back up to Djuma. I think timing's everything for this afternoon, and if I was full of Steenbok now, as she is, I would be sleeping in the shade. I wouldn't be on the move just yet, so we need to try and plan to be in that area around the Djuma Waterhole a little bit closer towards sunset as things cool down, and when should be more likely to be on the move. Afternoon stations. I did go for a walk around Hyena Road, no further sign of the Madoda Ingwe, who headed west from Dam this morning. Go ahead, Jamie. Either there or with Karula, Jamie, your call. But either one would be great. Thanks very much. Okay, well, Jamie's heading out on tracking team, which is great news. This whole massive branch was broken just to feed on the bark on this tiny little section, and they'll strip off the bark, and that's all they're interested in. This is a nasty tree called the buffalo thorn. It's got lots of thorns on it. And all the elephants will be doing will be stripping off this very thin layer of bark around the inner cambium of the tree, and this is where all the nutrients and minerals are transported up into the leaves and down into the roots. So it's the transport system, the vascular system, you could say, of the plants, all in this very thin layer of bark. And at this time of the year, there's not many leaves on the trees, and therefore the elephants need to search elsewhere, and they find those nutrients in the bark or the roots. And then we come and clean up after them. Well, good news, James's backup plan has been successful, so we are going to send you across to James and the lion. Enjoy it.
Welcome back to Wendy, everybody. We have found ourselves in a thicket here by a number of gwari bushes, under which this magnificent male lion is in sweet repose in the afternoon light. He sat up graciously when we arrived. Very nice of him to have done that, and had a quick look at us before falling fast asleep again, which is the general want of lions. Now, the good news is that the other Matimba male and a lioness was found not too far from here, and we're going to go off and see if we can have a look at them there. They are just near Arathusa Safari Lodge, which is not too far from here. So I don't think we're going to trouble this fellow for too much longer. We'll probably sit here for 2 minutes or so, and then we'll carry on across to Arathusa Safari Lodge. We did have a question from Terry, who wanted to know, do squirrels and birds alarm call at a sleeping lion? Terry, they might, absolutely. If they were to come across him by mistake, they may well alarm call. I've definitely seen it happening when birds land in a tree to pick up an insect or eat a berry or something, and there happens to be a leopard or a lion lying underneath it. They do get quite a big fright and start to shout and scream at the lion. So that is well possible, but there's certainly nothing shouting at him now. Hello, Johnny. Johnny, you say you only like lions when they do what they do, i.e. hunting and killing. Well, Johnny, that's a fairly bleak outlook on lion life, I'd say. they do quite a lot else. Well, mainly they sleep, they mate of course, but eating, killing, sleeping and mating is the general lot of a lion's life, but there is a lot of sleeping that goes on. Johnny, I'm a little bit worried about your desire to see murder and mayhem out here in the bush, but fair enough, each to his own, and we'll do our best to try and find a lion maiming something a little bit later perhaps. Right, I think without further ado, we're going to leave this chap to his peaceful slumber in the afternoon and head across towards Arathusa Safari Lodge and see if we can't pick up his brother or his co-coalition member. And what I want you to look out for is the fact that the other male is very different from this one. He looks a bit bigger to me, he's got a very dark mane, and that indicates that he's probably a little bit more dominant and that he's carrying a lot more testosterone. So let's go across there and have a look, and let's just try and decide if they really are brothers or if they're two random males who came together to form this wonderful coalition that was part of Styx originally, but is now part of two. Right, here we go. If you do lose us the signal, it's because I'm having to communicate on the Game Drive radio. There's some sort of interference here on Arathusa, so if you do lose us, I am going to have to talk on the Game Drive radio every so often in order to get into that sighting, but don't worry, we'll be back soon. Right, here we go. Hello James in Kansas City. You want to know, is Arathusa, which is the 600 hectare property that we're on now, is it higher up than Djuma? James, no it isn't actually. In fact there are parts of it that are quite a lot lower. If we, for example, there's an area just before the boundary that we can have a magnificent, on Djuma, that we can see the mountains and right over the top of Arathusa. So no, I'd say most of it's probably a bit lower, James, and certainly, I mean, most of the Lowveld, which is where we are now, the lowlands, are, I think it's going to make that nasty noise again, Genre. Okay, most of the Lowveld is gentle undulating topography like this, so you don't have to get very high to get an incredible view out east or west. They're very gentle, ancient, rolling granitic slopes. Very ancient land, this. Right, on our way. And just while we're talking about that, the topography is quite an interesting one. And it's an important one because a lot of this land for many years was considered to be fairly useless for agriculture, which it is, and that's because the soil is so old. It's very sandy, and many on the ridge crests and in the drainage line areas tends to be quite clayey and sodic, but it's not good for agriculture. And that's because it's been denuded over the millennia by the rain and leached and baked by the sun, and so it tends to be fairly nutrient poor. So even if you do grow, if you're a local here and you grow food for yourself, it's often not that good because the soil is so sort of poor for agriculture, but it's very good for wildlife, which is ideal for us. Now the trick, of course, is going to be getting into the sighting, because listening to the radio, sorry. We are on Arathusa, so there are quite a few game drives around, and it's not a particularly familiar area where we're going. So I just need to keep listening. So Arathusa Safari Lodge, and the waterhole is here. I'm not going to stop at the waterhole, I'm going to carry on straight past, and unless there's something very spectacular going on. The lions are apparently, as far as I understand it, on the road just to the west. Right, there is the waterhole and Arathusa Safari Lodge. Maybe lucky enough to see some hippopotami as we whiz past. I can see one. Oh, and there's some spur-winged geese. That's unusual. I'm just going to pull out to the side here so that you can see them as we drive past. I'm not going to stop this time. We might come back and have a look. There are some spur-winged geese. That's the largest duck that we get in this country. So named for the white spur that they have on the front of the wing. It's quite nice to see. It's not an everyday occurrence at all. Waddling down to the water. And lots of hippo looking at them with suspicion. So let's just have a quick stop and look. Beautiful birds. So that is the spur-winged goose. I'm just going to check quickly. I thought they were migratory birds and therefore they are very early back here. Just check my bird app quickly. Spur-winged goose. Status: common resident, forming large flocks in non-breeding season. That means they are not migratory. It is not the breeding season, and that is why they are in such a large flock. Thinking about taking to the water. Wow, Jeandre, I don't know which one you're on. The one to the far right just opened its wing, and you could see the spur. It's got a spike on the front of its wing. That's really cool. That's why it's called a spur-winged goose. I've actually never seen that before. That's great. So they use that for fighting. So in the breeding season they won't be nearly so nice to each other. They'll be fighting with their spurs, the males. Ferocious spur-winged geese. Vicious. Right, Jeandre, let us dispense with geese and go and find lions. What say you? Yes, nodding vigorously. Now, as far as I know, they should be just down there. Shari, I think I'm hearing your question correctly, but a little bit of breakup on the radio. Shari, you want to know basically where did the other Matimba go? Well, they split up, I think, last night, and I suspect because that male that we saw just now has his injury, and I think he just gets fed up with walking along with the pride if it moves too long, and they came down here with the other Matimba male. I see. Sorry, Shari, I've got your question correctly now. You want to know basically why did they split from 5 to 2? Shari, the answer is that the reason they do that is because it's very difficult to maintain enough to eat, very difficult to maintain a territory large enough for 5 males. So while they would have split up, they certainly will not be enemies at all. the coalitions, the different coalitions. One of them apparently is still in around the Manuleti area, and this one is around here. The northern coalition of 3, as far as I understand it, is up in Manuleti, and the southern one are these 2 Matimba males. Right, we're getting into the area now. I'm going to have to talk on the Game Drive radio, and so I think you are going to lose me. If you do, I'm very sorry. I'm standing by here, Ryan. Here is Star, thank you very much. Right, they're just up ahead. I've only seen this black-maned lion once. Just up here, Jean-René, keep your eye on. Cameraman's eye peeled. We're in this drainage line, which is a good place to be if you're a lion trying to be in the they're not in the drainage line at all. There they are. Okay, I can see a vehicle up there. They're nowhere near the drainage line. Ignore everything I said about it. Right. We are bumbling in here. It's an interesting landscape, which I'll talk about once we've seen this lion. Not to make too much noise. Okay, there we go. So just have a quick look there. Andre, can you see them there? We're just going to have a quick look through the bush and just give you another idea of what it's like if you happen to be walking through the bush and what you need to be looking out for. That is something that if you see on foot, you say hello and back off and do not come too much closer. Right, let's go in a little bit closer and see the male. The male is clearly fast asleep. Andre, any particular angle you would like? Or can I make the choice and then you can just shout at me if it's wrong? Okay? That side. Graciously sticks his head up for us. Very kind. He likes WildEarth, obviously. It's okay. Hello and thank you. So there are. Marvelous. Now, this situation is quite interesting. I saw tracks of some youngsters as well this morning, and possibly another lioness. So I'm going to have a wild stab at what I think might be happening here. This lioness might be in estrus, and they may have come away from the pride. They don't always, but sometimes they do, to mate. But if that is the case, it won't be too long before we see some mating activity. Otherwise, they'll just lie here like lions do. she's a very beautiful lioness, and she doesn't look to me like she's lactating. So she may well be in estrus, or maybe in pre-estrus. That's probably why he's following her. But if you look at him, if you look at his mane there, you can see it's quite a lot darker than the other one. Oh, here we go. This is interesting. Watch here. Oh, here we go. There we go. It's exactly as I thought. Children, cover your eyes. Well, that's not something you see every day. Fantastic. It's so wonderful when you make a wild prediction and it comes through. Now look at his mane. I mean, he's a beast of a lion compared with his brother, or his coalition friend. Oh, he's exhausted after that severe exertion. Wasn't that exciting? So the new generation of lions sure to be born, hopefully at some stage. Of course, the danger is that these Matimba males are, of course, not necessarily going to be around for too much longer. You know, they are in their prime, but the one of them with that injury, yeah, I think they're going to struggle to hold off the Birmingham males, unless the Birmingham males are attracted by the territory to the north. We're going to try and get round the other side of them, just so that the sun's a bit better for the camera. And move. So, in case you were wondering what just went on there, those two lions were mating, and that you can see it's pretty aggressive. And what happens is, as soon as when the male withdraws, he has a barb on the end of his penis, and that creates quite a lot of pain. And what I think it does is creates a contraction inside the female, and what that probably helps with is fertilization. So that's basically what we saw there, and that's why that growl comes. And she will, exactly like with a male, she will he will hold her down and sort of bite on the back of her neck, not too viciously, but sometimes after an extended period. Remember, they can be mating for many days. Sometimes after an extended period of mating, she will have sort of bite marks on the back of her neck. Wonderful to see. I haven't seen that for many years, everybody, so I'm quite excited. Jean-Vrai, c'est bon?
Très bien.
Très bien. See. So let's just look on the back of the female's neck if we can. I'm not sure how long they've been mating for, but remember, lions will do this for a couple of days, up to 5 times an hour for 3 days. That's quite a lot of mating. I think we're going to hang around here for a bit longer and see exactly what transpires. This female is in a magnificent condition. She's really looking good. Most probably one of the Styx lionesses. And you can see the male is completely exhausted by the exertions of his day. Genre is just saying that he thinks that the lioness does look like she's got a couple of love bites on the back of her neck. You can definitely see the fur is a bit ruffled there. So quite interesting. The other male, who wouldn't appear to be as dominant, and the reason that I say that is because his well, he's not here, first of all, and secondly, his mane isn't nearly as black or as full as this one's, and he's left these two to themselves. So, Janet, you've made the comment that Ginger is staying away, possibly to give his brother, or also his coalition partner, some privacy. No, I don't think that's the case. Sometimes the couple does move away, but sometimes they engage in what they've just engaged right in front of the rest of the pride, with very little self-restraint, or what's the word I'm searching for? I really think Ginger is just his pretty moment. Specializing around the area where there were definitely more than one lioness track this morning. Dr. Christine in Germany, an interesting question, and I like it. You want to know basically about testosterone and animals, and whether it affects aggression, and what effect it has on aggression, and when it changes, and that sort of thing. Dr. Christine, testosterone has a direct correlation with aggression. The best way to illustrate it, I think, is with young male humans. When we hit puberty, our testosterone levels start to rise quite strongly, and it results in secondary characteristics like hair, building muscle mass, and definitely a greater deal of aggression and a need to challenge and force your way. And that's definitely got to do with testosterone. Certainly people in the old days who used to take testosterone as an anabolic steroid used to be renowned for being a lot more aggressive than people who had natural amounts of it. So, in terms of seasonality, in these male lions, it will vary. Certainly, it will vary. But I think the more dominant a male is, the more he will maintain a level of testosterone. And if he has enough to eat, and I'm sure there's a huge genetic component to how much testosterone an animal has, same as it is with human beings. But if he's in good condition, he will maintain that testosterone. If you look at elephants, there's a tremendous amount of seasonality to do with it. So there was elephants going to must, the bulls, and that must is a very heightened time of testosterone when they are a lot more easily threatened. They're a lot more kind of bolshy. I don't like the term aggressive, but yes, I suppose you could describe them as slightly more aggressive, and that has to directly to do with the amount of testosterone there is in the body. Now with lions, lions who are more dominant, have more testosterone, tend to have blacker manes, fuller manes, and interestingly they've done experiments where they've introduced lions to each other, and lions with paler manes tend to be approached more readily by lionesses and cubs than they do than lions. Sorry about that sound, that's a large Toyota Land Cruiser starting behind us. Lions with paler manes will be approached more readily by cubs and lionesses, and lions like this with big dark manes, because they will tend to be a lot more physical and a lot more aggressive to each other. Remember, this doesn't have to do with people, it has to do with each other, intra-specific relations. Lovely question. Thank you, Dr. Christina. Hello, Dennis in Lakeville. Dennis, the gestation period of lions is about 100 to 110 days, so not a very long time, just over 3 months. And so if this mating is successful, you can expect to have some baby lions within, well, in time for the spring, I guess, in time for the first rains. But that is presuming that the Matimba males manage to maintain their dominance. I think they may well. You know, they look pretty good condition. You know, they're big fellows, these. Very nice question from Anne. And you want to know, is the female the motivator? In most species, like especially our own, for example, and you're in Durban, in most species, including our own, the male is the seducer. He's got to make all the effort to seduce the female and convince her to mate with him. With these big cats, it tends to be the other way around, and Anne, you are absolutely correct. She tends to initiate. As soon as she stands up, he will acquiesce to mate. With leopards, it's even worse. Well, not worse, but it's even more pronounced. With a female leopard, she becomes a complete raging harlot almost, and will harass the male until he shouts at her and makes her leave him alone. Leopards become voracious. Lions, slightly less so, but absolutely, you'll notice, I'm pretty sure they'll mate again, unless this is the end of the mating, which is possible. If they mate again, it'll be her who gets up and he will immediately stand up, and then we'll see what happens. Jeffrey in Austin, Texas, a question that I'm not sure I know the answer to. You want to know, does the male deposit sperm every time he mates, or is the mating just to stimulate ovulation? Jeffrey, I think probably a bit of both, you know. I think there's definitely an element of both. I think, though, that the barb on the end of the penis, which certainly creates a contraction in the female, is indicative of the fact that there will be some form of, I suppose, deposit of sperm at some stage during every copulation. But I could be wrong. Hello, Mavis. No, you say you are confused. I think I've obviously confused you somehow. Mavis, the same male lions of a coalition will not kill each other's cubs. So, no, I'm not sure what I said to make you think that. But if these two Matimba males remain dominant here until the cubs are born, well, then they'll be okay. Well, if they remain dominant until the cubs are a year old, so let's pretend that this copulation was successful. In 1 year and 3 months, those cubs will be safe from a new coalition that comes in. So these lions are not seeming to do too much, and I think it's been at least 12 minutes since they last mated. But I think it's going to be worth just sitting around a bit longer to see what happens. Hello, Dave in Toronto. Dave, basically you want to know, do lions show any sign of mourning when the coalition comes in or dies, or another member of the pride dies? No, Dave, they don't. In fact, I've seen, well, maybe a sort of kind of mourning, but I've seen a coalition of 4 males. I've seen one of those males die and the other 3 eat him. So I suppose you might call that mourning, but no, they don't. Not obviously, especially not things, not like elephants, for example, which show very obvious signs of mourning, putting the bones on their heads and standing around very silently. It's an eerie thing to see an elephant standing around a dead elephant. They go completely quiet, everything around them goes quiet. With lions, they just kind of get over it and move on, I suppose. And that's, you find that anyway with their social structure. They don't hang around and wait for sick ones. They don't hang around and feed sick youngsters even. So if a lion gets left behind, like Ginger has there, they'll just leave him to his own devices and he'll die. So that's, I wouldn't say there's any kind of mourning, I'm afraid. Not that that's a bad thing, but that's just how it is with lions. They're not quite the noble creatures that the Lion King made them up to be. Seeing that Right, a question from Cecilia, and for any new viewers, perhaps, if you've just tuned in, we have come, and Cecilia, fear not, Orange Eyes has not betrayed me. This is not Orange Eyes. For those of you who've just joined us, this is a Matimba male and probably a Styx lioness, and Orange Eyes, if you're not familiar, is the senior lioness almost in a pride called the Nkahuma Pride, which operates further east of here. Cecilia, we're sitting on Arathusa, about 400 meters as the crow flies from Arathusa Safari Lodge, and we've just come to these lions, and they are in fact in the throes of mating. So it's a very romantic lion scene that we have going here. We did also find a Ginger, the other Matimba male, a little bit away from here, in fact quite far, probably about 1 kilometer as the crow flies, and these two have come away to be alone for the next few days as they try and consummate their brief marriage. So Cecilia, fear not, Orange Eyes is still with the remains with the Nkahuma Pride, and there has been no change in our relationship. Remember, please, if you are perhaps a new viewer, or you've just joined us, or you've stumbled across the website while at work, glaring over some figures and looking for something entertaining on the internet to do, please keep watching. You're on a live game drive in the wilds of the Kruger National Park in South Africa. Everything you see is probably, well, you're probably about 2 seconds behind what we're seeing right now, which is not very long at all. Completely live, completely unscripted, and you're welcome to interact with us. We love to hear from you. We love your comments and your questions. Hashtag Safari Live or questions at wildearth.tv if you're on the email. Otherwise, well, no telephone calls, please. We tend not to take phone calls out here in the bush. Gilma in the Nederlands, you want to know what will happen if another female was to approach these two. Would there be some kind of fight or conflict, or anything like that, no, absolutely they wouldn't. Gilma, they would be completely tolerant of her, as long as I don't think she'd try and interfere at all. So no, there would be no conflict. It would be entirely, it's not unusual. Lions are mating, they do so pretty much in the middle of the pride. So no, there wouldn't be any conflict at all. I'm wondering why they haven't got up. I'm hoping we either at the beginning of the mating sort of session or at the very end. And perhaps it's starting to tail off now. Because normally, if they were in full flight, they would have got up to mate by now. These two haven't moved at all. Right, Miss Jin in Texas, this is an important question. Well, it leads on to a number of important topics. You want to know if a coalition of males starts to fight with another coalition, will the females watch, or will they get involved? Miss Jin, remember that the males are not part of the pride, right? So their territories are very distinct from the pride's territories. When they have a fight with other coalitions, they are normally away from the females. The females will want to be as far away from that conflict as they possibly can, because if they get in the way of a new territorial male, they're going to have a big problem. Not often, but sometimes new males in an area will kill females just kind of willy-nilly. There was a bigger coalition called the Mapocho around here a few years ago, and when they arrived they just started killing females, which was quite odd, but it's not entirely uncommon. So basically, if two male coalitions fight, the females will disappear as far as they possibly can. They don't want to be involved in the conflict at all. They don't want to be around the males when their blood is up. And you see this, and it's the same thing with human beings. When their blood is up, when the adrenaline's pumping, the testosterone's coursing through their veins, you don't want to be around a man like that who's just been in a fight or something like that, because he's angry, he's likely to lash out at whatever he can. And the same thing is happens with lions. So no, they will stay away from any conflict that the males have. Right, while these two recover from their copulation of about 20 minutes ago, we're going to pop across to Scott. He's looking at a much taller mammal than these, and if they threaten to get up at all, we'll come straight back here and keep you posted. Enjoy the giraffe, and I'll see you just now.
Well, how incredible that you got to see lions mating. It seems like James didn't only have a plan B up his sleeve, and really happy to hear that you all got to see that. It's been months since we've seen lions mating, and good prospects not only for this afternoon but also for 3 months' time, when that lioness hopefully gives birth to some cubs. We've been spending some time looking for Karula, haven't had any luck. She has disappeared like a ghost from where she was last seen, with no sign of any tracks coming out. But we are going to continue to work that area, and I think we've still got a chance of getting lucky. But in the meantime, we've bumped into this big bull giraffe, enjoying feeding on this bush willow tree. Looks like quite a big old male. Okay, we need to send you back to the lions. Enjoy it.
Okay, welcome back everybody. Big action. Just as I was saying that the female always initiates, here we're about to have, here we go. The male has definitely indicated that he is ready for round 35, and here we go. Just listen to the roar. So, I think that they're probably just at the beginning of the mating phase then. You saw her lie on her back there. Obviously that also helps with fertilization. And he is yet again in a state of abject exhaustion. So, fascinatingly there, he totally initiated that, and that's, I suppose I have seen it once or twice before, but it's much more common in lions than it would be in leopards. But it's still not the norm, I wouldn't say. Normally she gets up to move and he will shoot up from completely dead asleep to moving around. Question from Ashley in Alabama, who wants to know, do they pick their mates like we as humans pick our mates? Ashley, I certainly haven't seen this one playing a guitar to her, but yes, they do actually. I mean, without being facetious, they do. You want to know, are they attracted to each other? Yes, they are, but from a different point of view. So, females, just like with male humans, female lions, just like with female humans, will often select males for dominance, for status, and for what they bring to the chances of survival for the children. And while we don't often realize that that's what we're doing as human beings, that is exactly what we're doing quite a lot of the time. So, he's the most dominant lion in this area by some margin. And so yes, Ashley, she has selected him absolutely for the fact that he's the most dominant. He's got the biggest status. His children will inherit his status, and likewise, because he's the most dominant, he offers the greatest chance of success for the youngsters to survive. Were she to mate, say, with a young buck 4-year-old who popped in and mated with her, of course the children wouldn't survive. Nice question, Ashley. Another interesting one from Norm. Norm, you want to know if Ginger was here, would he be mating with her as well? Absolutely not. What tends to happen, I think this coalition is quite unusual because there's very clearly one dominant male and one fairly subdominant male, and that may have been to do with his injury, but normally what happens, Norm, is that the coalition doesn't have a dominance hierarchy, and that's often because they're brothers, so they're the same size, they're the same age, and so what happens is that whoever sort of gets to the female first, he's the one who's going to mate with her. And because they're related so often, that, you know, as far as the genetic legacy goes, it's still a good idea because they share genetic material with their brothers, and so they don't tend to mind. They don't fight over mating opportunities. Whoever gets there first will see out that mating period, and that's just generally how it works. I suspect with these two Matimba males, I'd be interested to know from our viewers if they've ever seen Ginger mating with a female, A, and B, when that was. Right, I think we'll probably head back to Scott, who's still with the giraffe. Beautiful animal, and certainly a lot more action-filled than what's going on here. If anything else happens, we'll come back to these two lions. But for the meantime, enjoy the beautiful giraffe in this glorious golden afternoon light.
welcome back. And not only once but twice have you got to see those lions mating, and hopefully a few more times this afternoon. We're still here with this giraffe. I don't want to put too much pressure on him, but let's try and get a little bit closer and see how he reacts. A question from John in Atlantis about giraffe, and he would like to know if there are many giraffe in this area of the Kruger Park. And no, there's not huge amounts. There are higher amounts elsewhere. I know where I've worked on the border of Mozambique, about a third of the way up the park, there used to be many giraffe in that area in the Nwanetsi concession. Having said that, though, at the moment there are quite good numbers. Look at that knobbly neck. He's an old boy, this, not looking in the best shape. I think he is on the way out. And is he trying to scratch his leg here? I think he might be. They'll often bend a branch between their legs and then ride it forwards and backwards to scratch between their legs, but that wasn't an appropriate tool for the job. At the moment though, John, there are quite good numbers of giraffe around here on Djuma and Arathusa. They tend to come and go, but the Sabi Sands is not reputed for high zebra or giraffe numbers, and it's often the last two animals to try and tick off the list for your viewers or guests. Good to have you with us, John, and hope all is well in Atlanta. We are going to continue now. Maybe we'll get one more view of him. Let's see what happens. The plan is to continue and snoop around for Karula. We haven't spent much time with her over the last few weeks. It'll be great to get a few more views of her. I also would like to see this little wound on her leg. I've yet to see that. Wonderful. Well, as I said, this is a big old bull, probably coming out of his prime. But who knows, maybe he'll be able to mate a few more times before it's the end for him. And Pam is interested to know, how long is the gestation period of a giraffe? And it's incredibly long, 450 days. I've just refreshed my memory. Had a quick look in my book. I'm terrible at remembering all the different stats like that, but it's 450 days, so that's about 18 months gestation. The elephant's 22 months, so a few months more than that, but incredible to think how long that little baby grows in their mother's belly for. It's born at about 100 kilograms, so it's born a fairly large animal. Well, earlier I mentioned that he had quite a knobbly neck, and Reese would like to know if that's from fighting over the years. And certainly I think there could be some swelling from fighting over the years. They'll batter those two horn-like structures into one another's necks and heads when fighting. But I think it's mainly due to the fact that he's not in the best condition. So if that neck was full of muscles, it would appear to be a little bit straighter than it was, but they do have fairly knobbly necks, the giraffe, and at the right angle they do appear like that now, a little bit crooked. But like I say, he is an old male who's not in the best condition, so a younger male with more muscle would hide all of those vertebrae. Oh, look at those lips. Tasty leaves. Okay, old boy. Well, good luck out there. And we are going to press on now and see what else is going on out here. Some of you may have been lucky enough to see the tiny little baby giraffe we saw a couple of weeks ago, and Kathleen is asking whether we had any updates on it or anybody's seen it. Nobody that I know of, Kathleen. So let's hope it's still alive and kicking. But it was very close to the southern boundary of Arethusa where we saw that giraffe, so not in the heart of the areas where we traverse. So the fact that we haven't seen it yet isn't anything to be concerned about, and who knows, maybe James will bump into it later on this afternoon on Arethusa. It was right on the southern edge of the airstrip where we saw it, so we may get to see it again, but like I say, it's not really in an area where we spend too much time that we last saw them. So off to the right is where half of our crew lives at the moment, nestled in those trees beyond the marula. So half of us stay there, the other half traverse half an hour back to the Manuletti. There's sadly not enough space for us here at the moment. But from the end of the month, or the end of August rather, we'll all be moving in together, so it'll be good to all be in one base again. It's never nice splitting up the crew every evening, but that's what we've been doing for the last few months. Well, there is a chance that we've completely missed Karula's tracks heading out of the area where she finished her steenbok, and she could well have come up and had a drink at the Djuma waterhole here without anyone noticing. The reason we can assume that that may have happened is that monkeys were alarm calling very intently at around 11:30 this morning. Stefan heard them when he was on his way to the final control room, and like I said, there's a chance she may have slunk right under our noses without anyone seeing her. So I'd like to come and spend a little bit of time around here and see if we don't get lucky. That giraffe we've just left was quite old, and Cecilia would like to know how old do I think it was. Probably around maybe 15 to 20 years of age. They do live quite long, so anywhere in that kind of area wouldn't be a great surprise to me. And there's multiple different species of giraffe. You get, I think, 9 different subspecies of giraffe, and this is the southern giraffe, James, that occurs here in the Sabi Sands. It's the only giraffe that we get in South Africa that occurs naturally here. The others all occur further north up into East Africa and that's where you get a lot more different species in a smaller area. But we only get the southern giraffe here. There's a few vervet monkeys. We're not very close to them, but I still would like to show them to you. Because you don't get to see them that often. They're busy foraging for little snacks down above the dam. Beautiful in this afternoon sunlight. Look at that. And while we enjoy looking at these vervet monkeys looking for snacks, I can answer another question. This one's from Vilma, and she would like to know if I've ever seen giraffe mating. And yes, I have on one occasion. It's a very, very quick affair. Basically, the male jumps onto the female's back, penetrating her and sliding off her almost simultaneously. It's a split-second procedure. And at first, I wasn't convinced. We need a link to James. The line's up again.
Hello everybody. They've hardly moved, and yet again, this time we've changed angle. We've moved. They haven't moved at all. Just listen. It was distinctly less enthusiastic than the last time, and he yet again actually initiated that, which is quite interesting. Absolutely exhausted. As I say, this can carry on for up to 3 days. And exactly this sort of frequency. So you can imagine how denuded of nutrition I think they both must be after such a time. They might eat during the course of it. They might also think about going off to have a drink. They're quite near the water where those spurwing geese were a little bit earlier. And so they may well go and have a drink a bit later. They'll probably move during the night. But this will go on for 3 days, if it hasn't been going on for the last 2. I don't think it has, though, because they seem to have moved a huge distance last night. They've moved a long way from where we first found their tracks. Otherwise, all is very quiet around here. An interesting question from Laura. Laura, interesting. You want to know basically if there were 2 females in estrus, would he mate with both of them? Laura, he might, you know, I think he'd really struggle to perform, to be honest. I mean, yeah, I think performance is probably something that's quite difficult at the best of times if you happen to be a male lion. But with 2 of them, I suspect the other male would probably take over that role. And certainly in a coalition where the males are a bit more equal than these 2 are, that's probably going to be the case. So I would say no. If there were 2 females in estrus here, he might try. But it would be very difficult for him to manage that. It's a very good question though, because I haven't seen it, but I don't see why it isn't possible, especially given that when a coalition comes into an area, they kill all the young cubs. And often one of the first things that happens, of course, is that they mate with the females in the area. So I suspect what would happen is the ginger would have one and he would have the other. And if there were more than that, who knows? Remember, the estrus period doesn't last for long, probably only for about a week, and they'll mate for about 3 days of that. So because it's so short, it's probably unlikely that they sink completely, that the females will sink their estruses completely, although they can be pretty close to each other. All right. Right. Interesting question from Sue here. Sue, I'm just going to reposition quickly, and then I will answer your delicately phrased question. We're just going to quickly nip across to Scott with the fish eagle, and we'll be back now.
Well, look at how beautiful this view is of an African fish eagle. It's certainly the best view I've ever been able to share with you. Oh, I was too slow for the photo, but Vian certainly wasn't. Awesome. Well, that worked out perfectly as James repositions the vehicle. And glad we got that glimpse of such a magnificent bird of prey. And without further ado, we'll send you back to James and the lion.
So welcome back, everyone. Sue, your question, as you say, is delicate. You say it doesn't look like he makes contact when he's mating. Sue, he does. I think possibly some of the time not, but I think most of the time they do. I know exactly what you mean. It does look like there can't be any form of penetration, but I assure you there is, and I know that because I've seen it a few times, and many times, and you can, if you get in close enough, you can see that there is definite contact going on there. Also, just related to that, Pamela's question, does it hurt the female or does it hurt both of them? I think it does hurt the female, certainly when he withdraws, and you wouldn't have that sort of growling sound. She wouldn't react in quite that kind of aggressive way when he does withdraw, and he wouldn't also. I think it hurts him too. He also wouldn't growl like that if they weren't making contact. So that last time it was a pretty half-hearted effort from both, and I suspect maybe there was maybe that wasn't quite consummated, but most of the time absolutely they do seem to make contact, and it can be pretty painful, obviously. And you can also see, I don't know, Genre, if you get onto her neck now, be backlit, you can see it's starting to be more and more ruffled. It wasn't particularly ruffled earlier, but it is actually getting more and more ruffled as he bites her on the back of the neck, and that often happens at the end of the mating as he withdraws, and yeah, it's almost sort of a revenge bite, if you like. Another vehicle coming in, that's the noise you can hear. So the afternoon's turning to sort of late afternoon, and see that lovely light coming from the side now. Little breeze, evening breeze coming up.
No, your bigger cats, yes. Bigger cats, yeah, they don't move around a lot during the heat of the day. They prefer to wait to cool down a bit.
Cecilia,
Start
Interesting one. You want to know, do animals instinctively know when they're pregnant? Instinctively, I'm not sure. Physically, I would say they probably do, you know. Whatever the equivalent of morning sickness is to lions, or the equivalent of, you know, the body will go through profound changes. The hormonal changes in a female when she's pregnant are enormous, and whether they associate that with being pregnant or not, I'm not sure. But I'm very sure that they feel very different when they become pregnant, much as, I mean, I don't know this myself, of course, not having ever experienced it or being ever likely to experience it. I know that certainly my sister-in-law and my female friends who've been pregnant note profound changes, as I'm sure many of you who've got children will know. And I'm sure these animals feel the same sorts of things.
From that night, they were moving around. The male, he is part of the dominant coalition in this area called the Matimba. I'm not 100% sure exactly on which lioness this is. It could be from the lionesses that were with cubs yesterday, part of the Styx tribe. But again, there are a number of different tribes in that area, excluding the males.
Alright, I knew this was going to come. I knew this moment was going to arrive during this day. I'm going to do my best to be as delicate as possible. Tyler, aged 12, right on the cusp of the birds and the bees, would like to know why the male growls and bites her when they're mating. Tyler's in Ohio, and I think he's with a number of other kids of various
And not sure what the rush was to get you to us. Obviously some... Welcome back, everyone. Not sure what's going on exactly, but good to have you back with us. I was just off the vehicle, and as I plugged my earpiece in, it was 3, 2, 1, you're live. So welcome back. And we are still snooping about just upstream from the Djuma waterhole. I'm hoping that Karula is going to be lured into this area because there's a lot of shade and cover for her to relax and digest her steenbok. There's also some fresh water that's pumped into a little waterhole in front of the Gallagher rooms. That may be what she requires to quench her thirst a little bit later. So I'm going to creep along here and make sure we don't miss any tracks of hers. Just seen some male leopard tracks. Which is a good sign. And maybe that's what was causing the monkeys to alarm call around here this morning that Stefan heard. They're heading in the opposite direction to where we're going, and I did check that road junction very carefully. So not too sure where he would have headed from here, but good prospects nonetheless. If we had tracks where we did this morning and tracks over here, it could possibly be Mvula and Tingana, both on our property last night. Oh, just want to get out and have a closer look. Okay, well, I think on exclusive there's a go-away bird calling nearby, but with tracks we need a little bit of time on foot to be able to explore them more closely, and we are not afforded that privilege right now, so we're just going to have to drive up towards Mvubu Road and check that he didn't head up there. My daughter Ingram Konzo head up towards Mvubu from the Gallagher Waterhole shortcut. Where could this male have disappeared to? Really love to see a big male again. The last big male we got to see was an incredible sighting of Tingana vocalizing. He was walking straight towards the vehicle, and it made for a wonderful, wonderful afternoon. Okay, well, good news is James is back up and running, so over to him. We will see you later.
Hey everybody, sorry about that strange technical difficulty, not sure what's going on. He's now engaging in what we call Flehmen behavior. He's still checking her receptivity to mating. I'm not sure why he needs to check that at this stage of the game. That was definitely consummated. Sue? Right, we're going to move into position. I'm going to just shift so we can get a slightly better view, and then I'm going to answer Tyler, age 12's question. Tyler, you lost us just as I was about to try and answer your question for you. Right. Alright. So, Tyler, what happens is, I'm going to leave the adults where you are to explain to the younger kids exactly what's going on. But in basic terms, Tyler, what happens is that the male mating is quite sore. When they've finished mating, it's very sore for them, both male and female. And so when he climbs off her, he is in quite a lot of pain, and that's why he bites. He also tries to hold her down because she's also in quite a lot of pain. And if he doesn't hold her down with his teeth like that, she might turn around and swat him in the face with her claws. And I've seen that happen, and that does hurt the males quite badly. So basically, Tyler, for lions, it can be quite a painful experience at the end of mating. I don't think it is during the course of mating, but at the end it can be quite painful.
Mating lions, lion cubs. Yeah, just another tough day at the office. Right, folks, I think we're going to leave the area and find a spot to stop for our sundial. Leave James here with a tantalizing lion tidbits. See how stoked he is with that.
Hello Gracie, aged 8 in Ohio. Gracie, you want to know, where are the babies? Gracie, well, with any luck they'll be in the female's tummy very soon. That's what these two lions are doing. They're making new babies, and with any luck in about 3 months' time we'll have some very new, tiny, cute little lion cubs. So Gracie, that's exactly what's going on here. At the moment, of course, we don't see them, but it'll take about 3 months for them to grow, and then we'll have some new babies with any luck. Sandy in Texas, you want to know if another male, so an odd male, say a Birmingham male, came across this location and happened upon, I think they're just looking at the car going past, I don't think there's anything untoward going on. I think, Sandy, if, say, a Birmingham male came along here, you want to know, would the fact that he's been mating affect his ability to defend his territory? No, Sandy, I don't think at all. I think, in fact, because his testosterone levels are probably very high at the moment, I think that his ability to defend the territory would be, if anything, increased. Cynthia, you pose an interesting one. So this morning, everybody, for those of you who weren't with us, perhaps you were cozy in your beds, or I don't know where else you might have been, maybe at work. We had the young Matimba male growling and calling, roaring this morning. And Cynthia wants to know, would he perhaps, this one perhaps, have answered his brother had it not been for the fact that he was mating? Yeah, Cynthia, you know, that's not a bad thought. It's quite possible that he didn't want to involve his brother too much. It may be that he just didn't feel the need. Who can tell? But that's certainly possibly one of the explanations, is that he would have wanted to keep this a slightly private affair. Like I say, though, I have seen lions doing what these guys are doing right in the middle of a huge pride. So it's possible, Cynthia, but I wouldn't like to say for sure. The sun is just starting to dip now. It's getting quite a lot cooler suddenly. I'm just going to put my jersey on, so if there's a bit of rustling, that's what it is. Hi Dennis in Lakeville. Another good one from you. Thank you for your question. You want to know, would the fact that they're mating now give the babies a better chance of survival, given that they will be born probably in the springtime when all the young antelope are born, when it's easy for them to catch young antelope? Dennis, they're not particularly seasonal breeders, and so the answer, they're not very seasonal breeders, so the answer is probably not necessarily. I tell you what, Dennis, the best example of a seasonal predatory breeder is that correct English? A predator that breeds seasonally is a wild dog. Now they always breed during the winter months. And that's because it's easier for them to catch prey in the winter because there's less bush. around, so it's easier for them to hunt. I don't think it's significantly easier for lions to hunt during the spring than it is now. You know, Dennis, because the water is so concentrated, antelope and buffalo and giraffe and zebra are forced to come down to the water to drink. They're forced to, they have to. The water is very concentrated. There's no water in the forage, and so the lions actually don't have a particularly tough time during the dry season. Yes, certainly it's quite easy for them to catch baby impalas and baby wildebeest during the early wet season, when most of them are born, but it's equally not particularly hard at this time of the year for them to take adult animals as they come down to drink, and when there's just clearly so, you know, when it's easy for them to, they're perfectly colored for hunting in this sort of vegetation. So Dennis, I don't think there's any significant difference between cub mortality and cub survival dependent on the season. And here we go again. Quite insatiable they are, these two. Can you see anything, Jean-Ray? We will move, sorry everybody. I don't want to disturb. But you did hear that wonderful growl. Jean-Ray, do you want backlight or front light?
Backlight, please.
Backlight, please. Well, this man knows what he wants. Jean-Ray, I mean, and the lion, of course. I'm sure you want backlight given where they're lying.
No, front.
And you can just see, I don't know if you can see, just get on her face if you can, Jean-Ray. You can just see her ears are pretty flat back on her head. She's not comfortable, but that's totally normal, totally understandable. I might have to use the Game Drive channel, so if you do lose us, I'm very sorry. I've just got to make sure that the other people who very kindly called us into the sighting are indeed able to access it. So I'm going to try and hail them visually. That lioness is now watching Jean-Ray like a piece of steak because he's putting on his jacket. Okay. Just like a house cat, she must groom herself and maintain her looks. Hello Grace in Dallas. Interesting question about whether or not, if she gets pregnant or if she doesn't get pregnant, will it affect her ability or her hierarchy in the pride? Grace, absolutely not. There's no hierarchy in a pride. The hierarchy goes according to size. The bigger you are, the more dominant you are to kill. Otherwise, there's very little hierarchy at all. So it would have absolutely no bearing. Oh, whoops, bless you, my son. It would have absolutely no bearing on her perceived hierarchy in the pride. Oh, look now, you see, we were chatting earlier today about the age of the ginger male, and if we get, can you go tight on his face? He's a very scarred fellow, this. He's been in many fights. A lot of those fights will be over food. He's got completely black nose, which says that he's well over 6 or 7 years old, but we know that anyway. But what is interesting is that he is, if he opens his mouth again, I want you to look how sharp his canines still are. Now, a lion over 10 years old, it's very unlikely that his canines would remain quite that sharp. Probably hear now 2 southern black tits that have just come upon the scene. They're now shouting at the lions. Can you see them? So, a nice question from Marit from the Netherlands. Marit, I hope it sounds like you might be a new viewer, which is wonderful. You just like a recap. This is, we think, one of the Styx lionesses. Now, the Styx pride seems to have broken into 3, or certainly separated temporarily into 3, and she's part of one of those breakaways. I think with another one who's got cubs, and I think she's part of that little group of 2 and the cubs. I think that's what's going on here. And for those of us, for new viewers perhaps, just a quick recap on the lion dynamics of the area. Not particularly easy to understand. The lioness is, when you saw her look around there, one of the guests in another vehicle has dropped something out of the car, so it will probably be the last you see of it. Oops. Anyway, so just to recap, there's the Nkahuma pride off to the far east, and they use Djuma as well, a large proportion of Djuma. And there's the Styx pride, and they use Chitwa and Cheetah Plains and Hoffman's, which is just south of Djuma, and they also come onto Djuma. That's certainly these 2 lionesses and their cubs, and then they'll come across here to Arathusa as well. And the whole Bang Shoot is dominated by these 2 big male lions called the Matimba males. And Matimba means strength in Shangaan, the local language here. The Matimba males are 2 adult males, a coalition. I don't think they're brothers. Having looked at this one here, I don't think he's related to the other one. Joyce and Kay. Joyce in New Hampshire, Kay, I'm not sure where you happen to hail from, but yes, you're wanting to know about the other Styx lioness and her cubs and whether they're okay or not. I think they are. They were certainly, we saw their tracks today, which was great. So they're obviously moving around. Here we go again. Round number 78. Please don't go behind a tree. So inconsiderate. Oh, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. There we go. There we go. Round number 78. There, now that's interesting. Tyler, if you're still watching in Ohio, did you see how she swung round and she took a swipe at him? Often the males do in fact get injured by that, and that's why he has to hold her down with his teeth. You saw her, he wasn't quite as careful as he's been before, and she swung round and she took a big swipe at him. Alright, we'll just sneak a little bit forward. Is that alright, John Gray?
Oui.
You're not too scared. I think if Jean-Andre is afraid, it's purely because of my appalling driving skills. Drove over a very substantial bush there. When Jean-Andre?
11 o'clock. Left hand down.
Is that you? Beautiful setting sunlight on that male. That is a quintessential line shot. Look at that. I might even take out my small camera and see if I can't get a picture. I don't have a Canon like Brent Leo Smith or Scott Dyson on the end of my camera. In fact, my camera is slightly embarrassing compared with theirs, so we won't show it on camera. Jean-Andre, do not take a picture of my camera. Barbara, Gilly and Susie, you're a bit worried about the twitching on the right hand side of his face. I don't think there's anything to be worried about. He might have a bit of an injury, he might have a mouth ulcer or something like that. It might just be a fly that keeps nipping back. It might just be a fly. John, I told you not to show everyone my camera. It might just be a fly that keeps sitting on a bit of an open wound that he's got, and you're just try and get it off. So I really can't see anything obviously wrong with the side of his face at all. So do not worry about it. You know how sometimes if you happen to be carrying something and a fly lands on your nose, then you have to twitch your face around a bit. What a classic shot, Jean-Andre. The lion's almost the size of a poodle in this frame. I don't, as a rule, take wildlife photographs, everybody, mainly because there are people with much better cameras and better eyes than I have. It's just so nicely lit. I'm sure with some software enhancement I can get a decent picture out of this. Andre, stop it. Oh, come on, look up. Magnificent point and shoot shot of this lion here. You can see my little green square, which is the focus. There, I just took a photograph. Wasn't that exciting? Would you like to see the result? Quite spectacular shot. I think I might send it into the National Geographic. I think you can expect to see that on the front of the next National Geographic magazine. It's an absolute classic. It's an award winner. World class. I can probably zoom in on it. There we go. There are only about 35 bushes in front of his face. Norm, you think that they probably won't be hunting in this kind of state. By state, I assume you mean in the throes of a romantic honeymoon fling. Norm, you might find that they will. You know, it's hungry work what they're doing now, and it's certainly not unheard of that they might stop. If something comes past here, they will unquestionably smash it and eat it. And then they'll carry on. So they're probably, you know, they both are pretty well fed, and so yeah, they might not hunt specifically, but there's no reason that they shouldn't. Thank you, Deb, for your comment. You say it's hard to believe we're actually watching this live. Deb, it is hard to believe, and I tell you what, I have to pinch myself as I sit here next to them. It's just such a privilege, isn't it? I see what you mean by his eye twitching like that. You know what? He keeps sneezing, and I think there might just be something in his nose. You know, like when you twitch your eyes when you've got a nose itch. That might just be what it is. But I really don't think there's anything dire to worry about. Football expert, an interesting question. I think I'm going to ask for some clarification from our viewers, but you want to know, is there any record of the Matimbas killing another male lion who's perhaps challenged them? I think while I was away, there was a conflict with what used to be called the Styx male. I think they may have wiped him out. I'm not entirely sure, but there'll definitely be people who know, and I'm sure they'll tell you now. But I think that's what happened. But I don't think they've had any physical contact with the Birmingham males just yet. Although they were, you know what, they were in and around the same area on Buffelshoek the other day. And I know that one of the Birmingham males left a carcass very smartly on hearing one of these guys approaching. So, yeah, I don't think they've had a fight yet, but they've certainly come close. So I think, everybody, that this is going to continue sort of deep into the night, and we're not going to hang around certainly for that long, but we're going to stay with them probably to the end of drive, and just make sure that, it's such a rare thing for us to be able to see and witness and watch. And so often, we've 3 or 4 or 5 game drives have come in and through this area, have watched them mate once and then disappeared. And you need to be very patient with animals to learn deeply about their behavior and what they do. And that's one of the great privileges, of course, of being with WildEarth, is that we get to sit with these sightings for extended periods. So while the other guys are out looking for things, we can sit and watch and really learn deeply what makes these animals tick. In lions' cases, what makes them tick is quite a lot of sleeping, quite a lot of Oof, here we go again, round 79. Move off. We had a question from, sorry, there have been so many this afternoon. I think it was from Sue, was it? About the delicate question about whether or not he's actually making contact. Now, I had a good look there with my powerful binoculars, and that vigorous movement to begin with is him basically finding where he should be. And then when he stops moving so fast, contact is made. And so I think absolutely contact is being made every single time. Now, he's definitely got something in his nose that's making him sneeze, and I suspect that's what's making his eye twitch. Jean-Ryan, will we go a little bit forward? Let me just move my enormous camera off my lap, and it's weighing me down slightly. I hope you can all hear the difference between when I start this little Land Rover up compared to the vast noise of the Land Cruiser. I'm very grateful for these little cars, I must say. Excellent. Hello, chaps. Right. So you can see now the light has faded, the sun has dipped down beyond the horizon. There's a 3/4 moon, so it will be quite bright tonight. Not ideal hunting conditions for lions, so these two probably will be lurking about here for quite a lot of the night, I would suspect. They might move around a bit, but I'm not really sure how far they will go. And we had a lovely question about sort of a sensory update earlier today while we were looking for the lions, and somebody asked, what does South Africa smell like today? Well, the low fog now, as the dust sort of the evening comes up and the evening smells start to smell, there's a lovely smell of the dry grass that we've been driving over, and then of course you get the whiff of what we call the potato bush, Phyllanthus reticulatus, and that to me is it's a powerful smell for me. I'm just going to wait for this car to stop and I'll tell you about why. The potato bush was one of the first bushes I ever smelt when I came to the bush, and I always associate it with some very special times in the wild, and I just love driving through the drainage lines in the evenings like this when the potato bush starts to smell. It's just a wonderful, wonderful smell. It's a bush that smells like a potato, funnily enough, and now I can just get brief smells of that, and there's a very gentle breeze blowing. The birds have calmed down. The odd water bird calling from Arathusa waterhole. But otherwise the evening is at peace. Barred from me coughing. So we're just going to have a quick look at the moon. A moon of romance this evening. It's a 3/4 moon, and it will bathe this romantic honeymoon leonine romance evening, or leonine honeymoon evening, in a sort of dim blue light. And it really is quite fantastic how, in the absence of light pollution from buildings and things like that, and certainly in the absence of atmospheric pollution, how bright the moon can make the night. I remember once at a place I used to work, we used to do moonlit walks sometimes. Now it can be a little bit dangerous, but you've got to be quite careful about it. And we'd send a vehicle out in front of us. We wouldn't walk far, we'd walk probably about half a kilometre or 1 kilometre in the light of the full moon through a clearing, and it is the most eerie, wonderful experience to do it. I think we're going to probably just sit with these lions for a little bit longer. We'll see if they mate again, and then I think it'll be time to move. We're going to probably just sit with these lions for a little bit longer. We'll see if they mate again, and then I think it'll be time to move on and go and see basically what else the night has to offer. I don't want to stick a light on them. I think we've had such a great time with them during the day that there's no real point in lighting them up. So Paula and Sandy, a nice question about males' manes. You want to know, are they attracted, or do manes intimidate younger lions? A big dark mane like that, absolutely it would intimidate younger males. It would intimidate strange females, and it would intimidate cubs. So they're definitely associated with some form of increased testosterone levels and aggression and dominance, so absolutely it will intimidate them. And females definitely select, when they're choosing to mate, they will absolutely select to mate with males that have darker, heavier manes. Ya, riperi le menjani kwalana.
Kwa kanjani wena?
Ngikho. Tingala tirandzana namuhla.
Ta Jehova mara.
Ta Jehova.
Okay. Khuluma sichanga xa kahle.
Ndaringeta.
Wena u ringeta u khuluma. Vulavula kahle sichanga xa kahle.
We're just greeting the other rangers that have come in. And that language that you can hear is called Shangan. Question from Grace about whether this lion, when she's finished with him, will she move on to another male? Grace, it's quite likely that he will. I hope that he will finish the job here over the course of the next 3 days or so. If he doesn't, if she remains unsatisfied, it's quite possible. But remember that the only 2 males in this area that she's likely to breed with are him, black-maned lion who we're looking at now, and then his coalition partner Ginger. And I think, given what is clearly a dominance hierarchy between the 2, I think it's unlikely that she would choose to mate with him as well. It's not impossible, certainly, but I think it's unlikely. Wish it.
Let's check.
Okay.
Let's check.
Yeah. No. Fine, Daniel. Yeah, yeah. Right, we've been focusing so much on the male. And Barbara from Boston has made the comment how beautiful and of course tired that lioness is. And you want to know, A, how old is she, and B, could this be her first litter? Barbara, looking at her nose and her general condition, I'd say she's probably about 5. So this is unlikely to be her first litter. I'm not really sure if she's had cubs before or how many she's had. I'm just going to back up slightly. Sorry, going across the road, and you can hear everybody driving around wildly to try and get it. I'm afraid I don't think we're going to get this one. There they go. You got it. Look at that baby. Right, we've now seen them mate, I think it's 6 times. 6 or 7 times, in fact. And I think that's probably quite enough mating for one day. Certainly for me, I feel utterly exhausted by the whole process. I think that Gendre and I are going to move on from here. Gendre, don't pull a face like that. We've been here a long time. And I don't want to, the light's not great anymore. And so I don't want to put a spotlight on them if it can be avoided. There's nothing wrong with putting a spotlight on them, but I think we're going to pull out here and make our way slowly back towards Djuma and see what other delights we can find. As we extricate ourselves from here, we're going to go back across to Scott, who is in fact still alive, and see what he's got to show you, and I'll chat to you a little bit later.
welcome back to a beautiful, beautiful scene here on the quarantine clearings. VM and myself have spent the last while stopping and listening, moving areas. A lot of listening's been happening, but we haven't heard too much, sadly. And not sure where either the male leopard, whose tracks link behind the Galago camp towards kind of the Djuma Dam, don't have any idea where he's ended up, nor Karula. I was really hoping that she was going to pop up at the Djuma waterhole. She still could in the next few minutes, as I'm guessing that's where she's going to get her next drink from, or unless she hasn't already had it before and we have possibly missed her drinking there. But we're going to continue now and do one more loop through the area again, back over the Djuma Dam wall. I still am confident that there is a chance she may come to drink there, and if it's not during the broadcast, it's certainly going to be worth keeping a close eye on the Djuma waterhole cam. Hopefully either her or the male who was in that area. Sometime, I'm guessing this morning, Steph heard alarm calls in that area, and the monkeys could have been alarm calling at that male. His tracks were just north of the Djuma Dam. I'm wondering if Tingana and Mvula aren't heading towards one another. We had tracks of another big male heading towards the Djuma Dam from Buffelshoek Dam, quite a way off, but as far as male leopards go, they can cover that ground quite quickly. And there's a chance that they might be having another meeting. They have had one or two encounters that have been seen by various guides, sadly not by us yet, and it would be really incredible to see what exactly would happen. They haven't been seen actually clashing with one another, but seen chasing one another and also vocalizing alongside, pacing up and down, sizing up each other's opponents. And that's often how male leopards will do it, I'm told. I've never seen much male leopard interaction, sadly. So I've just been told that they often do just vocalize about 20 meters away from one another, looking at one another. And I guess that's how a lot of animals will argue before actually clashing. A lot of arguments, just like with us as humans, are settled vocally, not necessarily with brute force. And that would be an incredible interaction to witness, two male leopards having a go at one another. If they can't settle their arguments by vocalizing, they will then come to blows. And I've seen some incredible videos of male leopards fighting one another, but yet to see it live. And that's what we would love to share with you, and it certainly is possible in the coming months as Tingana pushes deeper into Mvula's territory. It's incredible how cold it gets after being so hot just a few hours ago. There really is a nip in the air. It's a dead still evening, beautiful, beautiful evening. Waterhole behind the Galago camp, or in front of the Galago camp, is coming up. There may be something drinking there. Just got an interesting question through from Tina. Good evening and good to have you with us. Tina's interested to know if 30 years ago there were many more animals teeming through this area, more so than today. And no, I don't think so. Possibly through default there was a seasonal high in animal numbers in this area, but basically since the 60s this reserve has had fairly good animal populations. I think if we were to turn back the clock 100 years, possibly there would have been more animals then, but as recent as 30 years ago, I don't think there would have been a major difference to what we're seeing here today. Although it must be said that the fence of the Sabi Sand was only dropped, opening us up to the Kruger National Park and surrounding reserves, and I think it was 1994. So this was a fenced-in reserve. So I guess the numbers would have been quite a lot different back then, 30 years ago, because we were fenced in, but there were still very healthy animal populations within this reserve. Just trying to keep a close eye on, even though we found the male leopard tracks earlier on just up ahead of us. Just trying to see if we can't see any tracks now. It's just good to get an idea of where the animals are moving from, and that helps you forecast where they may end up. If you do manage to get the kind of general direction of movement, it can often be a good clue to go on. And we found the male's tracks about 100 meters up ahead of us here, a little bit earlier on this afternoon. I love this little area and this road crossing through the riverbed here. If we follow this riverbed that we're about to cross through to our right, there's a fence into the Vuyatela camp, and it wasn't long ago that we saw Karula slink straight under that fence, straight into the camp. We sadly didn't get it on camera. We were waiting for her to pop out there. It was very thick bush that she headed into, and we looped ahead of her and waited there. And as we saw her, we were actually filming the moon, and we saw, and in a split second she had gone under the fence up onto one of the decks of the rooms, and then she had disappeared. So I don't even think anyone got to see it, sadly, but it did happen. And it certainly wouldn't have been the first time that she's gone in there. She often gives birth within the camp and stores her cubs there, as do a lot of female leopards within the Sabi Sands. They're aware that it's one of the safest places to probably keep their cubs. Other predators don't spend too much time in there. I'm told Pamela is listening very closely to the Djuma waterhole cam, and she's noticed that she's hearing crickets. And you're entirely correct, Pam, there are most certainly crickets here in the Sabi Sands. And what I can assure you is that come summer, you are in for a treat. The amount of noise you hear from crickets, as well as other insects and frogs, even birds, really is remarkable. So that's one thing that is great about the wetter summer months. There's often an incredible chorus at night. Sometimes the frogs can make so much noise it's almost deafening. Trying to serenade one another. So as much as I love the winter and probably prefer it over the summer months, that is one thing I am looking forward to. So what's going to happen in the next few minutes, I'm hoping, is that as we arrive at the Djuma Waterhole Dam wall, we're going to look down to our left and see Karula approaching up the Mulwati riverbed towards the dam for a drink. It's certainly cool enough for her to now be on the move, and it is the closest water to where she finished her kill. Speaking of Karula, who we're looking for now, Judith in upstate New York is interested to know if we've got any updates on her two sons from her most recent litter, Kunyuma and Quarantine. And sadly not, Judith, I'm not sure where they may be. Last I heard they were spending time further to the south and east of us on a property called Londolozi, as well as in Coral, is I think where they're hanging out. They could well pop back for a visit at any time, but they appeared to have really moved out of their natal home range, where they provided us with countless sightings. We got incredibly spoiled in the first few months of this broadcast starting in November. We saw them, and probably still have up till date, seen the two of them more than any other leopards. The nice thing about young males is that they're quite easy to track down and find. They pick a small area that they like within their mother's territory, and then kind of start learning the ropes, and slowly they'll expand their territory until their father kicks them out of his land, and then they will need to move off and fly below the radar of other male leopards, which is exactly what they'll be doing now. Now this is the Milwaukee riverbed, and this is where we're supposed to see Karula creeping up towards the waterhole. But it seems like we may not have synchronized our watches accordingly, and either I'm early or she's late, or neither of the above. It's a beautiful evening here. Let's just stop and take a moment and we can look at the catfish and tilapia rising up on the water. They are making very easy meals for the saddle-billed stork. The lights you can see in the background are the Vuyatela camp that overlooks this waterhole. And I'm just going to keep quiet for a moment or two, and we can get hypnotized by these ripples. There's an African scops owl calling. You may be able to hear it very faintly. And if we listen carefully, they call every 4 seconds, almost to the second. So keep listening for that. Well, I'm not sure if you can hear it, but there's a very slight chance you would have heard that. Well, well done to Vim for capturing that grey heron floating in. Now this grey heron, I've begun to learn that it actually doesn't spend any time during the day here. But every night it comes to hunt, and I think it can use the illumination from the spotlights. And that's why it knows it can specifically come here for its dinner. And it spends most evenings hunting here. I know when we come on night drives, we often see the heron here, but during the day, very seldom. Look at all those fish rising. Oof. The heron has come to a very good place. Franklin's starting to call out now. The scorpsile stopped calling, so it's no longer worth listening out for that. You may see a few bats flittering through the screen. There goes one. Beautiful. And that's Venus, that little twinkle up in the sky. Very good. Okay, one last effort in search for the elusive leopard. What an evening it's been with your and James's time spent with the mating lion. I'm told 6 or 7 times you actually got to see them mate, which I think could be a WildEarth record, at least since we've been doing this broadcast, November last year. Very happy that that worked out the way it did. And for those of you that got to see both the sunrise and the sunset safari, you've had your fair share of wonderful big cat sightings, lions vocalizing this morning, leopards finishing off their kills, and now lions mating. Chatting about earlier that we can look forward to hearing in summer of all the different animals, and I did mention that I do prefer the winter months, and just got to help me explain why I do prefer the winter months. Debbie, it is incredibly hot and humid here in the summer. Temperatures of 40 degrees Celsius and upwards are not uncommon, and a humidity of often above 90%. So it's very hot and sticky, and we certainly don't need any form of extra warmth. You need to ideally be able to wear as little clothing as possible during the summer. And that's why I don't particularly enjoy it. My thermometer runs a little bit warmer than those around me, so I do prefer these crisp and cool conditions. Come on, Karula, or a bush baby. Or an owl would be good. It's been a while since I've managed to show you an owl, and I'm not sure if anyone else has seen one recently with all of you. Earlier on, I stopped and saw what I thought was a leopard up in a tree, and got my binoculars out, and I was almost convinced that we had found a leopard in a tree. I could also somehow picture this impala's head dangling below, but after a few seconds I realized that I was in fact dreaming. and it was far, far away, so it would have been an awesome one, awesome long distance visual. Here's an interesting little animal that we don't get to show you very often. It's a nightjar in the road. Oh, we got to briefly see it, and I'm not sure which type it is. It's very difficult to distinguish between the different nightjars, but they are wonderful little nocturnal predators. Anyway, we always love having you with us, so thanks for joining the show this afternoon. Glad you got to see lions mating, and a big thanks to Wiem on camera. He's heading off on leave tomorrow, so you're not going to be seeing his fancy camera work for some time. And thanks to Nikki and Lou in the final control room. We'll see you all on the next safari.
Hello, there he is. Everybody, you've just come back to us. We found the other male lion, Ginger, as he's called, and he's just marking his territory, and he was calling now. There he is. As you came back to us, we had him. So we've got 1.5 minutes left with you. We're going to watch him and hope that he calls us out of the drive. I'm going to say my goodbyes to you now while we watch him walking along the road. We've really had a spectacular afternoon of lion viewing, and I thank you so much for all of your contributions. Such great questions and interactions that we've had with each other. Thank you very much for it. You can see him limping a little bit there. A big thank you to Jean-Dre on camera. Difficult situation. Big thanks to Nikki and Louise and Eugene and Alex in the final control, as well as Stefan, and of course to Scott and Wiem on the other vehicle. So thank you very much, and we're just going to follow him for the next minute and hope that he calls for you. Otherwise, if he doesn't, I will see you in the morning. No, I won't actually, I'm off in the morning, but Jamie and Scott will see you bright and, well, fairly dim and early in the morning for the dawn. There he is. See him marking his territory. See him spraying. There's his spraying. There we go. Oh, and a little scrub here. There, he's calling now. Thought there was going to be a kill there. I was going to kill that little scrub hare that was a bit caught up in the lights. Let's just hope he calls. I don't think he's going to call again, you know. He might, but he might only